Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Elevating Your Life. And today we're not only going to elevate our lives, we're going to elevate our sleep. This is going to be so great. We have with us today Delphi Ellis. She is a qualified counselor, well-being trainer, and mindfulness practitioner who has worked in a therapeutic setting since 2002. She started her helping career supporting people in grief, mainly those bereaved by murder and suicide. She now works in the community promoting mental health maintenance and recovery, mindful leadership, and workplace wellness with clients in both group settings. She offers practical insights aimed at helping you find your mojo and getting your sparkle back. Delphi is asked to appear regularly on TV and radio, talking about dreams, with appearances on ITV's This Morning, Loose Women, and presenting the guide to sleep on Daybreak. Her book, which I have right here, Answers in the Dark, is absolutely amazing. It can offer, help you achieve calmness, health, a happier life. And I just have to say, I loved the book, Delphi, and I learned new information about my sleep, dreams, because I'm someone that does, have difficulty sometimes sleeping. It was a gift. So first off, I want to say welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Paula. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm just so excited to have you here. And I loved your book because I'm someone that I'm thinking about everything at night and busy. But anyway, I would love to start with a bit of your, more of your background, if you'd like to share, and kind of what prompted you to write this great book.
Thank you. So I guess it's helpful to take it right back to the beginning, because I actually grew up in an environment where we would talk about our dreams around the breakfast table. So it was quite normal for me to have those conversations about how well I was sleeping and what dreams I was having around the breakfast table. And it was only when I went to school that I realized that wasn't what everybody did. I was kind of aware of the fact that was quite unique at the time. But what it did do is, when I became a counsellor, when I started working with the bereaved, I found quite organically that people would start to talk to me about their problem sleeping and about the dreams that they were having. So when the time was right, people wanted to, as I call it, get their sparkle back. And some of that was around understanding their dreams and improving the quality of sleep that they were having. So it actually happened quite naturally that we started to talk about sleep and dreams as part of that work. And then over the years, it's quite interesting. Over the years, I had these ideas that I wanted to put it in this book. And I talk about this in Answers in the Dark, that it actually took me about 10 years to write. And the reason it took me so long was because I kept thinking, I've got to make sure I include this research, and I've got to make sure I get that right. And I've got to talk about this, from the sciencey perspective. And one day I was talking to a group of women. I work predominantly with women, and I work predominantly with women who are going through a really difficult time. And I was talking to them about sleep and the way that I talk about it. So I write very much like I talk. And I was talking to them about the subject of sleep. And one of them turned around to me and said, "You've got to write a book about this. I wish I'd known this years ago." And I was sitting there thinking, I'm trying, it's on its way. And in the end, I just decided that I was going to write it like I talk about it, rather than focusing. This book is not for academics. It's not for sciencey, people that are, looking for in-depth research in the topic from that perspective, because there's loads of books like that. This book is for people who nighttime is a nightmare, basically. And, they're looking for new ways to understand why they can't sleep, why they're awake in the middle of the night, and what can help with it. I think some of the information that we've got so used to reading, things like sleep hygiene, I talk about this in the book. We've got so used to this, is it because I drink too much coffee, or is it because I'm exercising too late at bedtime? And one of the things I talk about in the book is that I think we need to talk about, it's not always what you're doing during the day that stops you sleeping, it's what's happening to you during the day. Right, it's what's showing up in your life at the time. And so that's where I go with the book, and that's, in the end, that's how I decided to write about it. I decided to write about it like I talk about it, with a view to helping kind of explore some of the myths around sleep, and then offering this sleep cycle repair kit that I offer in the book.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And I love that you share about these myths. Oh my gosh. And, they're ones that I've believed in. Share a few of those with us.
Sure. So one of the biggest myths that I've spoken with people about over the years is, whenever I say to people, how many hours sleep do you think we should get every night? And without skipping a beat, people will say 8 hours. We need 8 hours sleep every night. And I will say to them, for me, that's one of the biggest myths of sleep, because everybody is different. So some people, certainly when they're younger, people need more sleep. Teenagers, they're not being lazy, they need more sleep. Whereas as we get older, we might find that we need a bit less. When we're sick, when we're poorly, we need more sleep. Sleep is the best medicine. Next to laughter, sleep is the best medicine. So, it's one of the things that I kind of encourage people to think about, is actually, how much sleep do you need, rather than buying into this idea that everybody needs 8 hours sleep. And the reason for that is because what tends to happen, if you say you've got to be up at 6 a.m, most people will work back 8 hours and think, right, I've got to be awake at 6 a.m, so I've got to go to bed at 10 o'clock. And the problem with that is that some people, you're just not sleepy at that time. That might still be too early for you, or it might be that you're already shattered by then, and you should have been in bed an hour ago. But because people think of this 8 hours, they almost like subtract this 8 hours and think, right, I've got to be in bed by this time. And of course, they're just not sleepy when they try to go to bed. So that's one of the big myths, is this idea that we need to challenge these 8 hours. Everybody is different. What some people need, other people might need a lot more. Some people might need a lot less.
I tell you, that just made me smile reading that, because, I can okay, I'm awake already. I'm ready to go. But gosh, I think I only slept like 6 hours. Is something wrong with me? And that worries you. But so really, it's okay. That really made me smile to realize that.
Yeah, and one of the things I talk about in the book is I mention that we, when I talk about this in this context, I'm talking predominantly in the West, how we've kind of processed and talk about these conversations. But certainly, in this country, in the UK, we've got quite caught up in our Fitbits, or our sleep trackers and things like that. So people will say to me, according to my sleep tracker last night, I got no sleep, I got this. And I'll say, but how do you feel? And they'll say, well, actually, I feel okay. But because their sleep tracker is saying they didn't sleep well, they kind of think there's something really, just like you said, they're kind of, what's wrong with me? I'm not sleeping properly. So I guess one of the key messages from that is always, judge and measure your sleep quality by how you feel. When you wake up in the morning, go with how you feel. If you feel refreshed, if you feel awake, and you feel like you were saying, you're kind of ready to go, you're ready to start the day, that's a good measurement that you've had enough sleep.
Yes. And that really told me, it was like, okay, Paula, and you this, it's know it with sleep. Listen to your body. Listen to how you feel. I love that. It's like, listen to our body. And if we feel we had enough, we're feeling good, hey, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So is it also a myth that it's not, you shouldn't wake up in the middle of the night, or tell us a little about that when we have disruptive sleep?
Yeah, so one of the things that I say to people is that fortunately, as humans, we are built to withstand periods of poor sleep. So if you have a new baby in the house, you'll know what that's like, to withstand periods of poor sleep, in the same way as if you go through a difficult time. So when you are navigating a bereavement, it makes sense that you might not sleep so well for a while. And thankfully, we are built to withstand that. We are built to withstand periods of poor sleep. One thing that I think we've also got into the trap of thinking is that it's unnatural to wake up at night. And so one of the things I talk about in Answers in the Dark is that we actually have, according to different opinions, we actually have almost like a sentinel reflex. So we almost have like this internal bodyguard that is on duty during the night, which may periodically wake us up and just check that everything's okay. But unfortunately, because we've got into this idea, and again, this is, really how we kind of operate in the West. If you've noticed, we've really neatly separated our days into 3 blocks of 8, as if that's how our bodies work. So we have set aside 8 hours for sleep, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for play, and 8 hours for work. So we've got these 3 blocks of kind of work, rest, and play. But we're just not designed like that. So what that then means is that people worry if they wake up in the middle of the night. They worry that that's wrong, that they shouldn't be doing that because we've set aside this period of 8 hours, which again is a myth in itself. But, we've set aside this period of time for sleep. And so they think that if they wake up in the night, that that's wrong. And yet actually what I say is that might just be your brain working properly. That might just be your brain that's, it was aware of something, or it was just checking in to make sure everything's okay. It's quite normal for us to wake up in the middle of the night, especially when we've got children, to just kind of check everyone and everything is okay. So when you think about it, that's quite an instinctive thing to do. That's quite, again, it's a very natural thing to do, to wake up in the night. The problem is, because we think that's wrong, we then start to get into this narrative in our mind of, oh no, I'm awake. What's going to happen? Am I going to wake up in the morning? Am I going to be so tired I won't be able to work? Will I be able to drive? How many more hours have I got left? Am I going to get my 8 hours sleep? We get caught in this trap of thinking. And so ironically, it's not so much us waking up in the night that's the problem. It's what we do next. It's, if we get caught up in this cycle of thinking that this is wrong, this is bad, there is no way your brain is going to authorize sleep if you're stressed. So if you start to get stressed about, am I going to be too tired at work tomorrow? Am I going to miss my alarm? All those kinds of things. If we start getting stressed about that, there's no way your brain is going to authorize sleep. So that's why one of the things I talk about in Answers in the Dark is to try to, instead of getting caught up in that spiral, I call it going down the plug hole, because it's dark down there. Sometimes our thoughts can spiral. And so one of the things I say is, instead of kind of letting our minds go, as I call it, down the plug hole, instead just kind of reassuring yourself and saying, do you know what, this is normal. This is my brain working properly. This is my brain doing what it's meant to do. It's keeping me safe. It's protecting me in the way it was designed. And so now I'm just going to focus maybe on my breath for a little while, or I'm going to do a relaxation activity, or, a body scan meditation, whatever works for you. And you might find that you then drift off into this lovely, refreshing sleep, much more likely than you will if you kind of lay there and just, get yourself wound up about the fact you're awake.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I loved in your book where you said, breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. I love that. I love that. That's so great.
That's one of the mantras that I learned when I was doing my teaching, and it's one of the ones when I use that mantra with other people, when I use that in a way to help them focus on their breath, or in to help them get a better night's sleep. That is definitely the breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. They love that. It's a really, really lovely one to try at night.
Yes, yes. And something else you said, Delphi, that I loved was your body doesn't just need darkness to sleep. It needs calm, and it needs an uncompetitive environment. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that competitive environment that is out there?
So one of the things that I talk about in the book is that we need, as humans, we need almost like a set of criteria to be met in order for us to feel sleepy and safe enough to sleep. So our bedroom has to be quiet enough, it has to be dark enough, and it has to be safe enough. So one of the examples I give in the book is of some people who were telling me about their sleep problems, and they were saying that they just struggled to get to sleep at night. And when I said to them, what, without going into too much detail, what do you do just before you go to sleep? And they said, oh, we have a like a word search competition. We do like a puzzle together to try and, you know, as a bit of fun together. You know, these people were saying that that's what they did. And one of the things I kind of explained to them is that your brain will see that as competition. So even though it's done in fun, even though it's done with good intentions, the brain again receives any sort of competition as potentially as a threat, you know, even though it's not a physical threat, it's almost like a threat of win or lose. And so it does need a calm environment. One of the other things that I do sometimes suggest to people is actually creating spaces in your home. I call them no whinge zones. So places that lend themselves to rest and relaxation. And for many people, that is their bedroom. So one of the things I say to people is do make sure that you have spaces in your home where if you need to have intense conversations, you know, if you're going to have a row, for example, or an argument with somebody, then try to make sure that's not in the space where you go to sleep, because energy lingers. So, you know, you probably know yourself when you walk into a room and you can tell there's an atmosphere. It's the same when you have an argument with someone, that energy lingers. So, and that's why I discourage people from, you know, having intense conversations in places where they're effectively going to lay their head down to go to sleep. Yeah. So that's another reason I say about the uncompetitive environment, because again, often when we get into those intense conversations, if it becomes about who's right and who's wrong, then that in itself, it's not going to lend itself to an environment that's safe for sleep. So I actually recommend to people, if you want a place in your house or where you live, make it outside where you have arguments with people, because if it's pouring it down with rain, you'll think twice about going outside and having an argument. So so that's one of the reasons I say that. But essentially it is about keeping the space calm and uncompetitive, and that includes not having difficult conversations in your bedroom.
Yeah. And it was just a fantastic piece of information, getting that, you know, you don't want to be doing something very brain activation, you know, way of doing something and have your brain just going, okay, I just solved this puzzle, or I just did this, and then, oh, now I'm going to go to sleep. That totally makes sense. That it really does. I had not thought about that, but that totally makes sense. Great piece of information.
It does. And when you think about it, it's the same as we have our mobile phones by the bed. You know, it's so tempting to check our phones. If we keep our mobile phones by the bed, it's so tempting to check the news or to check social media. And that's much the same. You know, it's stimulating our brains in much the same way.
Yes, yes. And something fantastic about the book, which is so great for us, is that you have what you call the sleep cycle repair kit. Tell everyone a bit about that, Delphi.
So it is a play on words in the respect that we know that each of us have a sleep cycle. And in adults in particular, that sleep cycle is about 90 to 120 minutes, depending on the person. And so one of the things I talk about in the book, and I think this for me was one of the kind of things about the book I really wanted to try and explain. And I'm always so pleased when people say to me, oh, I got it, I understand what you were saying, is the fact that I describe sleep as like a bus. And if you miss the bus, you have to wait for the next one. And your sleep cycles for me are much the same. So if you miss the opportunity to go to sleep, you have to wait for the next sleep cycle or the next opportunity for you to go to sleep. So, and that's where I talk about in the book, where I'm talking about buses. It does sound a bit random at some points, but it was done with the intention of kind of explaining to people that. So one of the great examples of this is how, you know, how sometimes you'll be feeling really sleepy. You'll feel your eyes going, you'll feel your head nodding. And that is your body giving you the signal that it is time for bed. When you feel sleepy, that is when ideally we should be going to bed. But, you know, maybe your favorite TV show is on, or there's a documentary you want to watch or something like that. And you think, oh, I'm just going to push through and I've got some jobs to do. And we push through. And of course, what happens is about half an hour, 45 minutes later, we go up to bed and think, okay, I'm going to be able to go to sleep now. And we end up just laying there staring at the ceiling, thinking, what's going on? You know, half an hour ago I was sleepy and here I am now wide-eyed looking at the ceiling. And so this is what I'm getting at in the book when I talk about our sleep cycles and how for me they're like buses. If you miss the bus, you're going to have to wait for the next one. So the key message really there is to go to bed when you're sleepy rather than when, you know, it kind of is more convenient to do so, because I think otherwise we can push through it and then we have to wait for that sleep pressure to rise again. That's what I talk about in the book. We have to wait for the sleep pressure to rise again so that we feel more able to go back to sleep. So the Sleep Cycle Repair Kit offers tips around, you know, how we can get a better night's sleep. Not just looking at sleep hygiene, though. It does talk about managing the mind at night and, you know, how we can sleep more effectively if we've maybe started to tame the mind a little bit.
Yeah, it was just fantastic. It's fantastic information. Well, I would like to, for a moment, touch on dreams. Give us your thoughts about the dreams we have, the dreams we don't remember, and that.
Yeah, so this really for me, when I was writing the book and when I finished writing the book, I was surprised that the section itself is, in terms of the rest of the content of the book, the section on dreams is relatively small. But one of the reasons for that is because rather than me telling you what your dream means, which I've often been asked over the years, I've always seen it as more of an exploration. And so one of the things I do in the book is it's not a dream dictionary. It's very much about providing a toolkit for people to explore their own dreams, because I think of dreams like a friend. They're trying to give you some advice or some wisdom, but like some of our friends, we maybe don't listen when we should. But at the same time, you know, sometimes we might hang on to their every word and we pay attention to what they're trying to tell us. But so I come at it from that perspective. I do talk throughout the book, I talk about the different types of dreams that we might have. So anxiety dreams, for example. And because there is a whole section in the book around grief, and I talk about how grief shows up for us, and particularly around sleep and dreams, there's a section on the types of dreams we have when we're grieving. And I'm very careful to say in the book that if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that grief doesn't just belong to death. It belongs to anything that matters to us that's no longer there. So loss shows up in lots of different ways. And one of the ways is, you know, when a relationship breaks down or we lose the job, you know, we're made redundant, those kinds of things. So I kind of explore the different types of dreams that we have, but then I go on to talk about how I see dreams as like your friends. They are a gift that you're being given, but like any gift, only you can unwrap it. Only you can decode their content. So it's almost as if I'm explaining to people that we each have our own personal enigma machine. You know, we have our own method of decrypting them. And so that's why, you know, I do think it can be helpful to talk about the dreams that we have. I do think it can help to, you know, maybe talk them through with someone sometimes. But ultimately, as the dreamer, you are the best person to decide what they mean. So for me, it kind of offers a toolkit to help people explore their own dreams, but also explores some of these interesting nighttime phenomenon. So I talk about when you might wake up in the morning with a song on your lips. You know, just a song in your head about something. I talk about something called old hag syndrome, which is the experience that some people have when we know it today as sleep paralysis, but old hag syndrome is the old name for it. And it often feels as if, you know, there's someone in the room or there's the pressure on our chest. But I also talk about things like predictive dreaming and creative dreaming and visitation dreams that people have. So, yeah, I really kind of unpack all these different nighttime experiences and give people.
I love it. With a couple minutes left in the show, please tell everyone where they can get Answers in the Dark. And what last words would you like to leave with us today?
Sure. So for me, in terms of the message, it's very much about making peace with bedtime. I have a whole section in the book called Into Darkness, and it's very much about how we can learn to make peace with bedtime. For so many of us, we often see the dark as a bad thing, and I offer an opportunity really to explore that in more detail about why we're afraid of the dark. Some of us with good reason, but some of us it's because of the myths and legends that we've grown up with, and how we can maybe make friends with the dark. So really it is about an opportunity to just open a conversation, some food for thought around making peace with bedtime so that we can lead a calmer, healthier, happier life. And they can find the book at answersinthedark.com. The book has its own website, which is answersinthedark.com. But they can also find me at my website, which is delphiellis.com, and they can learn a bit more about me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's just so amazing, all the information that you share. And, would you say real quick that insomnia is really a big issue out there? I mean, that a lot of us have to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. The World Health Organization, from what I remember, the World Health Organization defines it as a global problem. So something like 20% of the world's population now suffers with insomnia. So to all intents and purposes, we are a sleepless society, certainly in the West. So it is a big problem that we need to understand and navigate helpfully.
Oh, well, your book, Delphi, is a gift, and I am really grateful and just honored to have you on the show and share you with my audiences.
Thank you so
much. Love, hugs, and blessings. And to everybody out there, love, hugs, and blessings. Have a fantastic day. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.